I know that those men were doing, most of them, what they thought was right. As one former witness said, we have been victims of victims. I realized that all those men had been indoctrinated with a certain idea, and they had been taken captive by that idea, the same way that I have been indoctrinated. But I really felt sorry for them. I felt pity for them. And I think that we need to have that attitude and not engage in constant demeaning or vilification of the organization and its people. The Apostle Peter said in his fourth chapter of his first letter, the fourth chapter, above all, let your love for one another be constant, for love covers a multitude of sins. We are constantly have called to our attention the parable of the faithful and discreet slave. And we are told that this is a parable fulfilled in a class, and that class is put over all the king's possessions. But the same parable is presented by Luke in Luke chapter 12, and there he shows that it applies to individuals. And he says, for example, the slave that knew his master's will and didn't do it will be beaten with many strokes. But the one who did not understand and therefore did not do it will be beaten with few strokes. So he talks about one person and then another person, and not about classes. So like all others of Jesus' parables, this parable had a message for each individual Christian. The disciple Luke, in using that parable, he uses the Greek word for stewards. And he says, as generous stewards of God's manifold grace, put your gifts at the service of one another, each in the measure that he has received. So he shows that God has given gifts to every Christian in different ways, some in one way, some in another. And each of us is to use whatever gift God has given us on behalf of others. And the organization has given a totally different understanding of what it is to be a servant of God. When they talk about service, it's always their program, going from door to door or doing similar activities. The term works in the biblical Greek is the Greek word ergon. He says, your light must shine before men so that men may see the goodness of your acts and give praise to your Heavenly Father. And the word acts there is, again, the same Greek word that's translated works. So he isn't talking about some kind of programmed activity such as the Watchtower has, but what people show themselves to be in their daily life. And if by their daily life and activity and their dealings with people, they show themselves to be true followers of Jesus Christ. I wrote an article for the Watchtower magazine when I was still there at the Brooklyn headquarters, and it dealt with the Bible term which is translated sacred service. And the article showed that sacred service embraces all of our life. After I left the Brooklyn headquarters, they published an article on the same subject trying to refute everything that I had written. The Watchtower magazine said that sacred service applies to unusual activity, like going in field service or serving as a missionary or in a branch office.